Hello, folks, and welcome to this Patreon exclusive episode of Music City Murder. Now, if you're not a subscriber, head on over to patreon.com/Music City Murder, and you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. That is less than the cost of insert your own item here. There are very few things that are $1 a month. And so if you want to listen to all of these Patreon episodes, go over there and join up. But those of you who already are here, let's dive right in. I want to start right off the bat by talking about a warning. This is going to be brutal. So if you are within the presence of anyone who has any sort of complicated feelings about violence or graphic depictions of it, then that person should not be anywhere near you for the next, 20 minutes or so. Let's get into this. So this is the third installment of my series into Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Now, he is what the guys on the last podcast on the left might call a heavy hitter. And this is going to be the penultimate episode. I'm going to go through Ramirez's final murders in this episode and the next one, and I will not go through the trial and all of that because everything becomes fairly standard once Richard Ramirez is apprehended. So, since this episode will deal with a grand majority of Ramirez's crimes, it's going to be grisly. I'm just saying it just one more time in case you didn't hear me. Press pause, maybe skip this one if you're easily triggered by depictions of violence. So it's gruesome. He might be the most depraved serial killer that I know about. I mean, there's Chikatilo. I guess it's hard to gauge and rate them. I guess you shouldn't rate serial killers, but he's up there. So the last time we saw Richard Ramirez, he had bludgeoned teenager Whitney Bennett with a tire iron in the early hours following July 4th festivities in 1985. Meanwhile, there was a murder on the 4th of July at the Los Angeles Men's Central County Jail. Gil Carrillo and Detective Salerno helped to gather statements from eyewitnesses. And just as they had returned from this tedious duty, they were called out on the Whitney Bennett case. The killer had never used a tire iron before. There were no avia shoe prints, nor a gun or knife or handcuffs. However, because of the brutality of the crime, they suspected it was their guy. Carrillo was immediately convinced that it was him. They went to the hospital where Whitney was being treated in the emergency room for the horrific beating she had just received. The doctor said she'd live, but she had been struck more than 20 times with the tire iron. She would need 478 stitches, the equivalent of 4 feet in length, in order to piece her scalp back together. Detectives Salerno and Carrillo found Steve and Anna Bennett in the waiting room, and it alarmed them to be speaking with homicide detectives. A few days later, on July 7th, 1985, Ramirez cruised the neighborhoods of Glendale, Rosemead, and Arcadia before ending up back in Monterey Park, where he had committed the Doi and U assaults. He cut the engine and killed the lights on East Andrick Street, where Herald Examiner delivery woman Lonnie Dempster saw him. She didn't recognize him from the night of the Doi murder, but she didn't end up calling the cops on the suspicious character either. Ramirez got out and waltzed up to the pale yellow home of 60-year-old Joyce Lucille Nelson, just off Andricks on East Airlight. After checking the locked front door, he stepped to the side window, leaving distinctive avia shoe prints in his wake. The window was unlocked, so he went inside. Joyce Nelson was divorced and had lived in the residence alone for the last 21 years.